do
sure.
it 1,000 times again. That we have each other, and for that we have each other, and we.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Speaker Series, DWIB's second annual event of the year. We're so excited to have all of you joining us tonight to hear stories from four incredible women who have had to have resilience, grit, and rise up in such a male-dominated industry in order to get to where they are today. So just a little bit more about the layout of tonight. After each speaker, there will be a short 5-minute Q&A session. During that time, we invite you to unmute yourself, use the raise hand function, or use the chat function. If you do not have the opportunity to ask your question during that 5-minute Q&A session, do not worry. We'll be having a networking session at the end of the event where you can connect with the speakers and ask any additional questions that you may have. We also invite everyone who is comfortable doing so to turn on your cameras tonight so we can all see each other and be here together. But with that being said, let's kick off the night with our first speaker.
Good evening, everybody. We're so happy we're all here. It is my absolute honor to introduce Julie Cole, who's our first speaker of the night. So Julie Cole is a recovered lawyer, a mom of 6, and co-founder of Mabel's Labels. She has helped her company bring their product to a worldwide market, gain media recognition, and win countless entrepreneur awards. Cole is a regular television contributor, a sought-after speaker, and a parenting blogger. So we are very, very lucky to have her here with us tonight. And whenever you're ready, Julie, go right ahead.
Will help if I unmute myself. That is the probably most common term of COVID is you're on mute. Okay, I gotta share my screen. To group PowerPoint, start at the beginning. Okay, all right. Kathy, is that you, Kathy Buckworth? I've got a friend who's joining as well tonight. Might be her sneaking, hiding in the background. Her kid is a student at the group. So hey, yeah, thanks everybody for having me. I love speaking to students. I actually have a whole bunch of students of my very own. As was mentioned, I have 6 kids. 3 are away at university. 1 is a Mac student, and one's at Guelph and one's at Sheridan. So they're away right now, but I have 3 at home, and sometimes you hear them in the background making noise because no matter how often I say, just be quiet for 5 minutes, it doesn't seem to happen. All right, so I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about Mabel's very quickly. For those of you who don't know Mabel's Labels, we started 19 years ago in my sister's basement. We started for 2 reasons. I'll just explain, like I always say, people should know their why. And we had 2 whys. One was that there was a product missing from the marketplace. We had little kids and we were doing things like using permanent markers and masking tape and stuff like that. We thought, there's got to be a better product out there. So there wasn't. So like good mama entrepreneurs, we created a product that was really durable and really cute and really spoke to the parenting market. So that was the first reason, filling a gap in the marketplace and solving a problem. The second reason was because at that time, my eldest child, who was 3, just turned 3, was diagnosed with autism. And I knew at that point that I didn't think the traditional workforce was going to suit my family anymore. He also already had 2 younger sisters, so it was busy anyway. So I thought, well, I'll leave law. And I went to my co-founders and said, okay, what do you think? Should we do this business we've been talking about? And they said yes. And I do want to note, just because of the topic tonight, it has been my distinct experience that it is the women, the moms who are doing the pivots and doing the changes in their careers and leaving, well, often it is the, like if you have a male spouse, they are kind of continuing along with their career. So it is more, parenthood is certainly more disruptive, I would say, to women in business. I mean, there's a lot of data to back that up. So I know things are changing, but households are still not democratic. Women are still carrying the emotional and physical load of parenthood, and that is something that is an obstacle. And also when you take a leave and you go back a year later or whatever, sometimes that does impact your career as well. So there's these things that are still very much, a part of our lives as women in business and women entrepreneurs and women professionals, that we still, did you know that in fact, there are more men in Canada? No, there are more CEOs in Canada named James than there are women CEOs in Canada. Okay, think about that for a second. Okay, so that was my second reason I pivoted, because I had this kid with autism. I wanted to be able to advocate for him. I wanted to set up a great ABA program for him. I will tell you that as you know, Mabel's has grown and had a lot of success. So is he. He is now finishing his last year at University of Guelph. He's got a driver's license. He's done aid work in Africa. He's are you making that noise? Cut it out. Me, mom. I love you too, but and he's a lifeguard and has loads of friends and blah blah blah. So as Mabel's has grown and had a lot of success, so has he. And I always say that on my deathbed, I'll say he's my life's greatest achievement, and the other 5 are okay too, except that one. And now, so here we are 18 years later. We're in a 14,000 square foot facility. We won the Women Entrepreneur of Canada award twice. I'm actually a judge for it now. The gala, I thought it was tonight, so I was like, I can't come to the networking because I have to go to the gala, but it's tomorrow night, which I only realized today. So I may look like I have it together, but I really don't. Yeah, we do about 14 million in sales a year and have 40 full-time employees. So yeah, we've come a long way. I thought I would share lessons learned generally through my journey as an entrepreneur and as a woman in business, and also sort of generally ones. And I think that they can, I always try to say that there's no failures, only lessons. To me, it's only a failure if I keep making the mistake over and over again. That's why with every product launch and everything we do, we autopsy everything to make sure we don't make the same mistakes again. But I have many, and I'm going to share some important lessons in entrepreneurship that are also transferable to other careers and life in general. The first thing I wanted to mention was this notion of having it all, because that's something that I think a lot of women have this pressure on. And I mention it here specifically because I do feel like it's a gendered notion. People don't talk about men having it all. It's just women. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? We have to have like good careers and like hot spouses and go to yoga and kids who are in gifted programs. And I don't know, like, I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. But I do feel like it is something that is definitely put on women, that expectation of having it all. And y'all aren't here yet, but this has been my experience in raising kids and running a business. My mom, wow, it's so nice of Jeff to watch your kids for the next few days while you're gone. Me, yes, he's very excited to continue being a father. And I've had this personal experience many, many times. Whenever I have a speaking engagement in the evening, everyone says, who's got the kids? And I asked Daddy, when you go to events for your work or, in the evening, or you're away for work, do people, what do you say when people say, who's got the kids? And he says, well, I've never been asked that question. I'm like, fascinating, because I've never not been asked that question. So as I said earlier, we still are dealing with a lot of this gendered stuff. We're dealing particularly I got 6 kids. So, there's a lot of small humans. And I just do find like this whole thing comes up a lot for me and not for him. So I'm just here to tell you that having it all is having what you want. And I would say try to reject like what society is trying to project onto your life. And even like your parents, or like, you're going to have your young women, you have a lot of people kind of probably giving expectations. And I just found that, when doing what you want. Like I do feel like I have it all. I wanted to make labels till 2 a.m. and then get up with 6 kids at 6 a.m. I wanted to have 6 kids. If I didn't want 6 kids, I wouldn't have had them. And then I've got a sister who's a year older who never wanted kids, never wanted to do any of this. And she has it all as well because she is exactly what she wants. So, I feel like women particularly have this thing of like people projecting what we need, like I remember people telling me what I needed. You need more me time. I'm like, don't tell me what I need. I got this, or your family needs this. I'm the expert in my family. I got this. So, just try not to let society project onto you what you're having it all is, because you're having it all is having what you want. A couple of lessons I learned through the business was getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Every time I thought I knew what I was doing, something would change, like certainly it would be, we're making labels in a basement and then suddenly we've got a few employees. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know anything about HR. You know anything about HR? So as soon as we thought we knew what we were doing, we would experience some growth and we'd have to learn new things. And again, we would be uncomfortable. And that's all right. I mean, I think being uncomfortable is important. It forces you to stretch goals and be innovative and think outside the box. And I would really encourage you all now as young people to really practice doing all of your problem solving, whether it being academic, social. Now, I know sometimes us parents, because I know like I have 3 kids who are like one's turning 22 tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and 20, and one's turning 19 on Saturday. So I see like my friends who parent, and I know we have this generation of parents, it's this tendency to snowplow and helicopter. But the way I've always done it is, my feeling is today's problem solvers are tomorrow's leaders. So when you feel your parents circling a bit, just remind them like, thank you. But I've got to do this. I've got this, because you practicing this stuff now is going to make you great leaders later. Again, today's problem solvers are tomorrow's leaders. And that's why, things like, I don't let my kids have phones because I don't want them phoning me. I mean, obviously my big kids do, but if they fall off their bike, I don't want them calling me because they fell off their bike. Like, figure it out, walk home or call on a neighbor. I don't people say, honey, my kids need to have a phone for emergencies. I'm like, yeah, getting picked up later from the mall, or saying, can you, pick me up from school? It's not an emergency. So they always seem to find me in a true emergency. And, I just think always obviously I'm probably, what did I say? Preaching to the converted here or whatever. But, if you're the smartest person in the room, find a new room, always challenge yourself and surround yourself with smart people who clap when you win. I have an expression that I've got too, that I've got hanging up on my office at Mabel's. It one says, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. And the other says, don't tell me I'm burning the candle at both ends. Get me some more wax. So do all the things. Another thing, people often ask me about is because, between all my, I do a lot of writing and media and humans and making labels and events and stuff like that. Is I have to be really, really productive. And so do you folks. I mean, you've got lots on. You probably have work, you have school, you have parents, you have pets, you have to be efficient. So a couple of little strategies I thought I'd share with you. One would be, you're saying, why is there a frog on that fork? It's because my one is, I say eat the frog. And that's that notion in time management and productivity, where the thing you want to do the least, you do first thing. So first thing in the morning. Say you want to get your workout and get it done in the morning. Say you hate doing, replying to emails or whatever it is you hate the most, do that first thing in the morning. Otherwise you really waste precious time procrastinating on that, or perseverating about it, or thinking about it, or whatever. Turn off your notifications. If you're working on a project, like, it can be so distracting to hear the ding, ding, ding. And I mean, you guys have been raised in this, so you don't know the joys of not having to, respond. So just turn off your notifications, check them every couple of hours, set boundaries. I do little things like people say, kind of pick your brain about business. I'm like, sure. And I set up one half day a month where people can pick my brain and sign up, I say no a lot. I say no to my kids. If they walked through the door tonight and said, I need 24 cupcakes for school tomorrow, I'd be like, as if that's going to happen. Are you new here? Have you just met me? Like, have you met me? I'm your mother. So my rule at work, rule at home always is your lack of planning doesn't constitute my emergency. So put a lot of value in your time and the things that you're good at and make other people do the same thing. Another thing, and I think this is something women are spectacular at is knowing your network is your net worth. You build those communities. Look at you all here tonight. And even if it's something that you're not super comfortable with, challenge yourself to be getting out there, because, visibility leads to credibility, leads to loyalty, leads to sales, leads to all that stuff is just so good. So, I have friends who own businesses and they're not the kind of people who like to put themselves out there. So I'm like, challenge yourself, reach out to an entrepreneurship podcast and say, are you looking for guests? Make yourself do that. Turn up to a networking event. Put yourself out there. Challenge yourself. Oh, you're probably asking why there's a foosball table there. We'll talk about your network. So when we were starting Mabel's Labels, it's an e-commerce business, and we were an early adopter. We started back in the day when people were like, I don't know if I want to put the Visa number to the computer because somebody might get it, which I guess can still happen. Anyway, that was back in the olden days. So we didn't have any money. We were starting a business, but what we did have, because we were all friends from the University of Waterloo, we had lots of nerd friends. So we had some nerd friends who could build websites, and we didn't have money, but we had a foosball table that they wanted. So Mabel's Labels, now doing $14-16 million of sales in a year, was built on the back of a foosball table and a couple of Waterloo nerds who were part of our network. One of our very first academic, our entrepreneurial business advisors was one of our old economics profs. So wherever you go, collect your network and make little notes of, what is that person good at? What can I use there? What can I tap into there? So your network is your net worth. Mindset. Yeah, look, my thing is, when life gives you lemonade, you make a gin and tonic. My secret sauce really has just been my perspective. It's the only thing I can control. We do have a tendency for our minds to go to the negative. So I always try to focus on the positive. I'm not like one of those toxic positivity people, but if there's a way that things can be taken, I always take it in the positive way. I've got a friend who always does the opposite. She's like, I gotta learn that. So if I get a text and it can be taken two ways, and one is like super, what does that mean? And one is just at face value. I don't even give the negative one, I don't even let my mind wander to what the other one can mean. I just go with it and I run with it. I try not to complain, because complaining hasn't actually been very proactive. Like, I can't say I'm tired and a bed arrives and people say, go to sleep, we'll do your work for you. That's never worked for me. So you know what, if I'm tired, then I need to make a shift. I'm the author of this book. So I do find that if you can just change your mindset a bit, go through your day and be like, okay, what am I complaining about needlessly? Plus, complaining is really boring for other people to listen to. Just shifting that mindset a little bit. And I had one of my kids, my Mac kid actually, and she hated COVID. She's on the lacrosse team there, and she's an ISI, and she loves being in lectures and asking things at labs and running around fields with sticks and things. And she had a really hard time, living in that basement in the Hammer. And I just told her what I wanted her to do every morning was to text me with 5 things that she thought were okay the day before. And what it ended up doing for her was making her look for stuff. So it could be so simple, she was like, I got to report to mom 5 things. So I got to find 5 things. And then it made her notice 5 things. It'd be like, some persons, they had smiling eyes behind their mask when I passed them on Main Street in Hamilton, or, I saw a really beautiful rainbow today, or whatever. So it's just trying to shift that mindset to look for some good stuff. And just because honestly, this is, people are like, how do you do it with all the kids and all the, and I'm like, I just do it, and I'm okay with it. It's what I signed up for. And like I said, lots of gin and tonics. And especially, you know, those brain gremlins can get going at you. You got to shut those brain gremlins up if you can. And I like you know, think about what are the things that are holding you back. And I think sometimes when we get alone and we're siloing, and I think that happened a lot through COVID. But I mean, again, you people are here and you guys are probably the ones who are reaching out. And because I think often, especially with solo entrepreneurs or people when they're working from home and they get like caught in their brains and the brain gremlins and stuff, like how many blue chairs are in your life? Like, are the things holding you back real, or is it really just a light blue chair? So again, this kind of goes back to your network and making sure that you're connecting with people and you're sharing your ideas and you're getting feedback. Because I know in my young days as an entrepreneur, I can remember saying to my co-founders, I'm like, this is never going to work. Look at what, and they'd be like, whoa, but what about this? Or I'd have an idea and I think it great. And they'd be like, let's rethink that. Have you thought about it this way? And I thought if I had been alone through that and not been like sharing these ideas, it would have been really tough. And a lot of those light blue chairs may have held me back. Yeah, bad decision, bad startup, bad hire. Look, honestly, you guys are young, but don't be clinging to mistakes just because you spent a long time making it. There's a term in like finance or accounting, and it's not sunk cost. What is it? But it's that thing where like the more you invest in something, the more likely you are to hold on to it. And we felt we did that at Mabel sometimes too. I remember we had a hire that was so bad, but we didn't want to fire. Nobody wants to fire anyone. That sucks. If you sleep the night before you fire somebody, you're dead inside. So we just kept putting it off. And that was dumb. I mean, that just costs morale. It costs money. Of course, nobody wants to see their friends or colleagues fired, but they do want to see them gone. So, don't just cling to it. And I see that with people, young people with their friendships or old people with their friendships. I mean, just to stay friends with somebody because you're a friend since high school. If the person's like super toxic and like doesn't clap for you when you're winning, that kind of thing, then they're out. And I mean, heck, I know people have been married for 25 years and are miserable and they're like, but it's such a successful marriage. I'm like, no, it's just long. So, whatever you're doing, sometimes quitting is for winners. If you have a bad startup, failing fast is a great way to go. This is why you have serial entrepreneurs, because people make mistakes, people fail, and then they move on. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I just want to finish with saying that, this is your journey. Own it. Comparison is the thief of joy. I think it's super hard right now, particularly in these times where we've got social media. We see a lot of what the guys are doing and what their opportunities they're getting. And we know that male privilege exists and we see it and we live with it every day. And it's super annoying. It's super frustrating. And I know like my generation moms, we are trying to raise our kids differently. And I know y'all will too. But I just think, when you're comparing yourself, you're seeing things on people's Insta feeds or their Snap or whatever. And just remember, a lot of times you're seeing the highlight reel, like these perfect lives and perfect what if families, and they just don't exist. So, just remember, this is your journey. This is your life. And it's your chance to own it. So this is me on laundry day. I'm really modest too. No, this is actually from a thing that we were doing about how women are superheroes or whatever, and it was funny. But anyway, stay in touch, and I think we have time for Q&A.
I love that photo, Julie. That's awesome.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Honestly, hearing you speak from personal experiences makes you such a joy to listen to. We're so lucky to have you here. We are more than happy to open the floor up for a question or two for Julie. So if anybody has anything, please feel free to pop it in the chat. Julie or I can read it out, or feel free also to raise your hand and unmute yourself.
Come on, don't be shy. Oh, Gabby's got a raised hand.
Go, Gabby.
Hi, Julie. Oh, Jerry, am I okay to go?
Yes, I was just
Perfect.
saying, go ahead, Gabby.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing your experiences, Julie. I think it's really important, like Jerry said, to hear from personal experiences rather than just what you read about from people's advice with what they haven't lived through. So it's nice to hear a real story. I guess my question would be, during the times that are tough and when you do face those barriers, especially in a male-dominated field, what kept you going and how do you kind of tackle those challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think really, maybe this does go back to your network and net worth stuff. Like, I think surrounding myself with other professional women, being a part of professional organizations, I have a very tight, and I think Kathy's on here, I have a very tight network of women who are my peer mentors, and they're all busy in similar but non-competing businesses to a certain degree. And we make sure that we're always rising each other up, and we support each other. We reshare each other's things. If somebody can't do a TV segment, we'll ask one of the others if they can cover for us. We meet, in fact, we're going to Kathy's cottage on Thursday for an overnight. So we support each other, have fun together, but also we come and we share our problems. We go through our wins, we go through our challenges. And that we have been doing for years and years and years. So I think supporting yourself with, again, women who are relatable, who challenge you, who understand you, is the very best thing. And I think all of you are here tonight. You're off to a roaring good start.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we have our own little group of super girls over here at
Awesome.
Dwib, so that's
Awesome.
awesome.
And I will say also too, like for me being an entrepreneur, it allowed me, like I had the unique experience of being able to set up a corporate culture. So we have corporate culture where, you know, we don't do sludge. Like people are very results driven. So say like somebody's driving their kid to daycare and they usually go to work at 9. An example of sludge would be, so you guys don't know this, but this is like, you get up, you get yourself ready for work, you get 2 friggin' kids get ready for work, you put them in the car, you're driving to daycare, one kid vomits, then you're like, crap, you got to take them home, wash them, hope you've got somebody like a mother or a sister you can drop the kid to. So you get to work at 9:30, you walk in the office and you get, nice of you to join us. And that just brings your morale right down. You've already put through like 2 full days work of just getting yourself out the door and then reshuffling. And it's the women who are doing all this stuff. And so our office is in a sludge zone. We don't babysit who's coming and going. You don't have to say you're going to the dentist because you want to go to your kid's Christmas concert. We hope you go to your kid's Christmas concert and tell us about it the next day. We don't say, don't go on. If I walk by, nobody shuts their windows that they're on Facebook or whatever. I don't care. Get your work done. I don't care. When this business was built in a, like, we're changing the world while we're changing diapers. We're making business plans during play dates. Like this was the culture. And we, you know, it's a culture where we hire and fire by our core values. It's a culture where we encourage people to call out their male counterparts if there's something like, you know, and we always like supply, like give education, and you know, it's just about living by your core values. And it did give us a unique experience being the people who created a business. So of course I would encourage anyone going into business, or even, you know, when you start working for somebody else, you know, really try to do what you can to ensure that there's a culture of support for women.
Thank you for that. That's really insightful.
I like the no sludge terminology there, Julie.
Yeah, sludge is gross.
Yeah, the worst. So I think we're all good for that. And thank you so much again, Julie. We really, really appreciate you being here. I saw there was one more question in the chat, and I'm sure some other people might have some. We are going to move on to our next speaker, but please stick around, and anybody can ask you those questions in our networking sessions later on.
That's awesome. Can you just tell me what time is, because I didn't think I was originally going to be able to do it, because remember I mixed up my events. What time is the Q&A? So I make sure I'm back.
No worries. We have our networking scheduled for 7:25 to 7:45.
Okay, I'll be here.
Amazing. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, I'll take over. So thank you so much again, Julie. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we loved hearing your story and some of that really insightful advice. And so now I'm incredibly excited to introduce our next speaker, Miss Tessa MacArthur. So Tessa leads the Frito-Lay Field Sales Organization for the Central Ontario area. Her passions lie in developing her team, creating a culture of fun and collaboration, and executing growth-driven sales plans. Tessa has held many positions within field sales and customer development at Frito-Lay. And Tessa, whenever you're ready, I'd love to throw it over your way.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? It's funny how I've never been in something where it asks you the questions on Zoom. It's like, hey, are you cool if it's recording, or do you want to leave? I had to, like, you know, question myself for a second there. So I hope that my biography kind of tricked you guys into making me feel a little bit more legit than I actually am. So really appreciate you guys having me on. And Zoe worked for us in the summertime, did an absolutely amazing job. And I wanted to start first. I don't have polls or anything that I can do. And you guys are a little bit camera shy outside of the executive committee. So I wanted to do like a raise of hands, but maybe you guys can do a quick reaction, just ask a couple of questions to get a sense for the group, and then I'll jump into just chatting through. I don't have slides. Julie was amazing, so I loved all of the little the tidbits that she had, so it was great to hear her speak, and hopefully I can do it justice. I come from a very different lens of the industry, working for PepsiCo, a big company. And I'm about 12 years in, so hopefully I've learned something along the 12 years that I can share with you guys. So wanted to get a quick raise of hands or reactions first. Has anybody on this call wanted to work in sales before? Yeah, okay, we got a couple. Cool, cool. Has anybody, oh, there's a bunch. Wow, I'm impressed. This is good. Have you guys taken the course, the sales course with Professor Malik? Has that happened yet for you guys? Is he still around at McMaster? No? Is he there? Yeah? Yeah, everyone's saying yes. So Professor Malik's a good partner of ours in terms of recruitment, in terms of giving us a lot of great students over the years. So I don't know him personally, but our VP of HR, which obviously they have a pretty heavy hand, and Dave Monker went to McMaster. So he's a massive McMaster, recruiter. So if you guys take that course, make sure that you talk to Professor Malik about PepsiCo. All right, the next thing I was gonna ask you guys, has anybody thought, oh my gosh, I feel like I really want to work in grocery? Has anyone worked in grocery or felt like they wanted to work in grocery? Oh my gosh, we all have something in common. I had no clue. Like it's funny. So I went to Laurier. Let's start from the beginning. I went to Laurier, I took a BBA. Funny enough, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be like a veterinarian. And then I went to this science camp at Queens and figured out that I really can't deal with yucky stuff. So came home and said to my parents, like, what am I gonna do? And they said, well, I think you should go to business school. And I had absolutely zero clue how that would benefit me, but I was fairly okay at math. And you guys are probably in the same boat going, what am I going to do with my business degree? And I think, as a university student, you guys are obviously all involved doing different things. You're getting to know who you are as a person in university, which is the most fun time you're ever going to have. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Although I love working, so there's nothing wrong with that, but you're going to have a blast at university figuring out who you are. But then it's like, okay, who am I and what do I want to do? So I went to Laurier, I took a BBA, and one thing I really liked about Laurier, and I'm not going to talk too much about Laurier because I know you guys are all going to Mac, so great school. But is we had to take a bunch of these courses that I really didn't want to take at school. So we had to take finance and accounting and, getting into statistics and all of these things that I really didn't want to do. And I was like, I think I want to be a marketer. Why can't I just take those classes? But I would say one thing I really learned in school is building that base and foundation, because now, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what I do in a second, but now kind of getting into the working world, you realize how important being kind of a general manager and understanding the totality of the business is. So I've, if I could go back to university, I would embrace those classes. Finance and accounting are the core to everything, basically. So it's a good thing. I'm sure Julie, owning her own business, would say that too. And HR and every single function has its part in play. And the more you understand, the better you are in the business world. So I did 3 co-ops in marketing. And I found kind of a passion when I was in high school. I was this like really athletic gal, played basketball, volleyball, and rugby. And that darn rugby team, I tore my ACL. So when I got to university, I decided, hey, I think I'm going to head over into like leadership and figuring out what I want to do. And I love that I'm on this call because I can tell for all of you guys, you're getting involved at school. And that's so important for you to do, not only to learn about yourself, but to really help yourself get ready for extracurriculars in terms of applying for jobs. Because as a recruiter myself, I really like when people are involved at school, because it shows that they've got initiative and drive and they want to be a leader at their school. So that was kind of like my Laurier experience. I did 3 different co-ops in marketing. And then when I started to go looking for where I wanted to go work, and I'm sure you guys a lot of you guys are in this moment now, where 13 years ago, I was like, hey, and I know I don't look that old, I know. But 13 years ago, I was like, where am I going to go work? So I worked for a marketing consulting firm. I worked for a software company, and then I worked for, at the end, a retail company. So it was Petro-Canada at the time, and figured out, like, I think I want to be in marketing. I was applying for agencies. I was applying for marketing jobs everywhere. And then my first actually interview with PepsiCo, I applied for sales just for the heck of it. It was like, hey, I'm just going to go roll up into the interview and see how it goes. And actually, my boss now was my first interview. So he was at the time a zone business manager. So Zoe, the exact same person that would have hired you. At the time, he was a zone business manager who hires our field team. And he kind of said to me, great interview, right? He told me I was going on to the next round. Back in the day, CPG was a really super sexy field to work in. So I had 13 interviews to get my job with PepsiCo. Can you guys imagine? Like, no one would go through, everyone's like, no, we don't do that anymore. But 13 interviews to get my job with PepsiCo. And my first interview was with him. And, Julie talked a lot about network. For some reason, Mike Flanagan, if you guys look him up on LinkedIn, he said, let's stay in touch throughout the process. And I did. So you gotta when you make a connection, keep that connection. And he helped me throughout my 13 interviews. And then I started back in 2009. And he asked me in my first interview, why do you want to do sales? And, of course, I had this great answer. And then it ended up that I didn't really know. And he kind of told me, I think you can be a leader within this organization. And this is why. And he saw the things I was doing at school and kind of talked to me about sales. And then I really realized it's not about selling particularly, it's about being a general manager. And that's what I do today. So moving into what I do now, I am a zone sales director within Frito-Lay. So PepsiCo is obviously a nice big company. We sell beverages, we sell chips, we sell Quaker, we sell a bunch of different stuff. So kind of my area of the business is snacks. So you can't take your life too seriously when you're selling snacks, right? It's pretty fun. But if you don't know, a little bit of a grocery fun fact for you, but so PepsiCo, we have a couple different go-to-market systems. One is called DWD, where it's all direct to warehouse, where we kind of ship our products to the customer warehouses. And the other one's called DSD, where it's direct to store distribution. So yes, you learn something new. I say a lot of acronyms. So if I'm doing acronyms, you guys don't understand me, let me know. But DSD, so direct to store distribution. So every kind of chip that you'd see on the shelf is placed there, not just in grocery stores, but convenience stores, Dollarama, all the good stuff, is placed there by one of the people on our team. And so currently today, I lead the Frito-Lay kind of field team, which is about 375 people from downtown Toronto up to Huntsville, Bracebridge, Cottage Country. And I have a massive passion just for people and supporting. I've got 18 managers on my team, and they're amazing. And how I started with the organization was on a chip truck. So I learned kind of from the ground up, understanding that was going to be coming and joining the sales leadership program. Your hope is that you're going to be a manager or a leader within the business one day. So the best way to learn how to lead a team is to do the work yourself. So I know you guys talked about, hey, rise up and grit. I would say, and Zoe, you can speak to it yourself as well, not a super easy job. I had some long 12, 13-hour days, and I'm not trying to say like, everyone goes through it and you have to, but it is such a good learning to kind of understand. I was in a lot of the stores called the Chip Chick, which I, accepted at the time, but now I think about it and go, oh, I don't know if I'd really let them call me the Chip Chick anymore. But I learned a lot of good lessons on the truck, and I'll tell you guys one quick story. So you guys know the chip trucks. Do you see the like Lay's and Doritos trucks out there? I was running a route in Orangeville. So basically what that means is I had about 40 stores, convenience stores in Orangeville. And starting off my day, it was 2010, when the Vancouver Olympics were going through town. And that's a long time ago, I get that. You guys were all probably like super tiny. But the Coke had this torch run going out all throughout different towns, right? So Orangeville was super excited. I don't know if anyone's from Orangeville on this call, but they were shutting down the main strip of Orangeville. And I really needed to get through a street so I didn't have to drive around the whole city. So I ran over to the cop and said, hey, can I just drive through? I know you shut down the road, but I really want to drive through so I can get through this and I have to go around town. So I drove the truck through a parade, a Coke parade, mind you. And I just slowed down and embraced the moment, rolled down my window, started honking the horn and just waving. And all the kids were like freaking out. So it was about taking a fun, maybe really long day and just having fun with it. So I guess as I get into kind of, I didn't put slides together, not particularly my style, but wrote down a couple of things in terms of learnings that throughout my career I've done. I've been working for PepsiCo for 12 years, and I've done about 9 different roles. And I think one of the things that I've always kind of embraced is, really having that kind of true learning and curiosity every single day, and kind of bringing that with me and trying to take experiences and build upon them. So, from driving the truck in Orangeville to managing a team of 20 men, older men, when I was 22, every kind of experience that you get, you want to take that learning with you. And even the really, I'll say it, shitty ones, right? So even the ones that maybe you're feeling kind of self-conscious about yourself, or you didn't show up the best that day, it's how do you take that learning and brush yourself off and take it with you. And one of the great things about PepsiCo is we're an organization that allows people to, we say coach versus tell, so it's really about how do you coach someone through a scenario versus tell them what to do, and allow people to kind of fail a little bit, not too much. You don't want them to, ruin themselves, but fail a little bit. And I was able to do that a lot early throughout my career. And one of the big things that why I chose PepsiCo is that I knew that I could come to work and be my authentic self every single day, whether it was kind of, someone that was super happy that day, a little bit goofy, or whatever the background might be. Another thing, and I think Julie kind of started to talk about it, and I think one of the big things that I've learned since working at a big organization with a massive network of people, and I think it's important that you kind of embrace that, but someone said to me once, empowered women empower women. Have you guys heard that before? Yeah. So I think it's, I look at our president of PepsiCo Foods Canada is a female. And when I started, her name's Kara Keating. She's absolutely phenomenal. And we have amazing female CEOs within the business. Our CEO, Indra Nui, she just put out a book. Our old CEO, she was our CEO for quite some time. And then a couple of years ago, she retired from the PepsiCo business. But we've had so many amazing women that are kind of, you could say paved the way. But one of the things about women working together is helping each other. So I think as I've worked throughout the business for 12 years, you can see the evolution. We actually, so when I started as a district sales leader within our business, so if I look at like a percentage of females in terms of leadership, At the time, 9% of our leadership in our sales organization were women. Now we're close to 60%. So you can't say, hey, PepsiCo is putting a massive effort towards making sure that the folks that are leading our organization reflect the communities we serve. And that's not just about gender, it's all about diversity and equity and equality. So I have a space to be you behind me, which is a big push about diversity that we're doing. But it's really important that you kind of pave the way, but also take others with you and support. So I remember someone said, and I think it was actually might have been Kara, she's like, hey, they say, take your seat at the table, but also take a chair and bring someone along with you. So it's important that you're empowering women and supporting each other and working well together. In terms of kind of grit, so I know you guys are talking about rising up and grit and different things. The best kind of example I could talk to for this, I gotta say, is COVID. So I'm sure so many businesses have gone through challenges and obstacles and crazy times. And I remember the day I was actually out in some grocery stores with a couple of my managers, and we were walking through stores, kind of looking at stuff, seeing how things were going. And then we got the notifications, the NBA shut down, the NFL shut down, the NHL shut down, what was going on, and freaking out. And you started to see the panic in the grocery stores, especially in the GTA. And I had that moment. So I think a lot of you probably have heard of that imposter syndrome, where I had that moment where I'm like, I have a team of 300 people. They're all looking to me on what do I do in a grocery store where no one wants to be? How am I going to go to work every day? And how are we going to come up with safety protocols and following government guidelines and all that stuff? And that was a moment of grit that I've never felt before, is that moment that, hey, the team's looking at me to figure out what we're going to do to get through this pandemic. And I will tell you, I'm pretty sick of these Zoom screens. I'm sure you guys are too. I've been able to safely connect with some of my team lately, which has been awesome. But we've kind of paved a different culture and way through and supporting the team, finding moments of fun, putting safety first, and really helping each other out. So, the pandemic has really helped with grit, but I've also think if you have great people around you, then you're going to get through it together. And it's not about you as a leader. It's about, the team really rising up and supporting each other. A couple more things, and I'll wrap it up quick. I don't know, you guys can just give me if I'm going over time, but one other quote that another female speaker I heard gave me this advice was, believe you belong. And I don't know how many folks have heard that before, but we had Cassie Campbell, who's a part of women's hockey, come and speak to us about that. And I think when you talk about male dominated industries, and back in the day, grocery, oh boy, very male dominated. It's getting a lot better over the years, even since I've started working. I would say in the grocery stores, there's still a lot of guys, but a lot of the leadership within retailers are starting to change and evolve, not just to, for gender diversity, but ethnicities and backgrounds. But it's so important that, you have confidence in yourself. And I always say to my team, hey, guess what? We didn't hire you for your weakness. Everyone always focuses on how can I get improve my weakness and get better with that. And for me, it's really like, embrace your strengths. Like, don't worry about those, you have to have self-awareness and be like super aware of those weaknesses, and don't let them like rule the road or derail you, but also make sure that you're super keen to your strengths. And then when you're a leader, you're a mentor, it's about, bringing those strengths out in people and really helping them to get better. One lesson I learned a little bit too late in my career, I'd say, and when you're first starting to work, and I'm sure you guys do this in your co-ops or your internships, is I'm just going to work myself to death and they're going to love me so much because I'm the hardest worker in there. And I would say you're probably your toughest critic. So find your balance. I think probably even for you guys with school, extracurriculars, everything you're doing, you want to, I think Julie said it well, you want to have it all, but you also got to have a life. You got to have balance, even if it's balancing between like, 2 glasses of wine, whatever it might be for that day, making sure that you're finding that balance in your life and enjoying. I find when I first started working, I was so keen to please everybody. I never wanted to say no. Julie said it too. It's like, no, when you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And typically you're saying no to yourself, right? So I always look at, during the pandemic, if it was like the second week, I got a Peloton and I was like, one of those instructors said to me, progress over perfection. And I'm like, that is an amazing thing to kind of, take with you and have fun with it. So every single day, you get up and you get to do it again. So I just have fun working, doing what I'm doing. And I'm excited to connect with you guys. I know I probably just spewed a bunch of info and knowledge at you, but excited to hopefully be able to connect and maybe answer any questions that you guys have about PepsiCo. We're always looking for fantastic women to join our organization. So I would love to answer any questions that you guys might have.
No, thank you so much, Tessa. I know I've had the opportunity to hear your story and gain your advice now a few times. I'm lucky enough. So I'm glad that everyone on the call and some of our members were able to experience that as well. I know how valuable it was for me and others. So we can take a quick question for Tessa. If anyone has one, you can pop it in the chat or even raise your hand. And again, like Jerry said, we're going to have a breakout room question period after as well. So don't forget about that. If you're not able to answer your question, get your question answered now. If no one has any questions, I actually have a quick question for you, Tessa. You mentioned it in your presentation as well, but if you could give, I guess, a summary of just one huge piece of advice that maybe you received at the beginning of your career with PepsiCo and Frito-Lay, and how that resonated with you, and it could be something that our members can benefit knowing when maybe starting their careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you enter, especially if you go into a really big organization, I'd say career mapping and development is evolving. So I'd say back in the day, there'd probably be you could go to PepsiCo. They would have given me a map that said, hey, here's how your career should go, right? I think that careers are evolving in the way that, they want you to be more of that GM mindset, understand supply chain, understand finance, understand all these parts, because if you want to be a senior leader within an organization or maybe run your own business one day, you need to understand all the different parts. So I wish a little bit of advice someone would have given me was, hey, own your career. Because I think now when you're kind of, you have some credibility and you've worked for some time, you got to voice your opinions and make sure that people know what you want to do in your career, right? So a lot of the times it's like, hey, there's going to be a path that an organization is going to want you to follow. But when I was kind of first going with it, I was like, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm, getting promoted. Things are wicked. This is awesome. Like, it was all great, and I have had an awesome career. But as I look back and now I understand, it's really about, hey, where do I want to go? Like, the company sees me going here, but where do I want to go? So I think it's finding that balance and finding your voice and figuring out where your path is, versus just kind of following the same career path as maybe the people in the past. Because I think the leaders of the future are going to be of a little bit of a different DNA than the leaders of the past.
No, thank you so much, Tessa. I hope everyone found that as valuable as I did. So thank you again on behalf of all of us.
All right. Thank you so much, Tessa. I think we all really enjoyed hearing from you. To go into our third speaker, we have Charmaine. Charmaine is the Senior Director of Retail Business Development for Rogers Communication. She is also the co-founder and the co-chair of the Black Leadership Council at Rogers Communication and is a big part of all of the inclusion and diversity work at Rogers. She had a dual scholarship for basketball and softball at Lake Erie in Ohio, where she majored in pre-law. So with that all being said, Charmaine, the floor is yours. You're on mute.
Love the virtual. Gotta love the virtual. So I just want to say thank you, Marissa. Honored to be here today, and thanks for inviting me to speak. Where to begin? I mean, Julie had slides. Hey, Tessa, I have my Peloton back here. Same thing, got one too. You know, this pandemic has been crazy. But, you know, what I want to start with is I've been in the telecommunications industry for over 28 years. And I don't know if you guys have been hearing in the news lately about what's going on with my company, but I'm not here to talk about that. You know, there's been a little bit of, I guess, succession strife going on at work. But for me personally, I've been, like I said, 28 years. I started when I was 12. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And as you can see, I am mixed. I'm actually Black and Asian, and I'm the only Black senior director in the wireless organization at Rogers. We have over 24,000 employees, so I'm just gonna let that sit with you for a minute. And that's why, like, my journey may be a little bit different than some of the others, because it's not only challenging being a woman in corporate Canada, but being a woman of color presents a little bit more challenges, unfortunately. And, you know, a lot of people that I actually mentor today, they ask me, what advice, you know, when they say, what advice would you give your younger self? My response is always this, is have a plan B. Because you can plan your life at this age and know what you want to do for the next 5 to 10, even 20 years. But you know what? Life happens. Meaning things happen that are completely out of your control. So as Marissa mentioned, I had a dual scholarship to Lake Erie College, which is a D2 school, division school for basketball and softball. And my plan, you know, I was a huge LA Law fan. I grew up in the States. I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to do this since I was about 10 years old. And, you know, because I grew up in Florida and learning a lot about civil rights, Thurgood Marshall, I wanted to, you know, do just that. And, you know, I was in Florida at a time where I was not accepted by the average American, didn't really fit in. All this to say that being biracial back in the 80s was not a ton of fun. But if I go, anyway, back to Ohio, I was on summer break back in Scarborough where my parents lived. And 2 weeks before I was supposed to go back, we found out that my mom was diagnosed with cancer. Multiple myeloma to be specific, so blood cancer. And at the time, there's no treatment, fairly new. So obviously had to put my schooling on hold. And this is what I talk about, like life happens and you have to quickly adapt and adjust. And at the same time, my dad just left with no warning because he couldn't handle what was about to happen or what was going on with my mom. And I had a little brother who was 14 at the time. I was around 20. And I had to take care of him and my mom. So I had to quickly pivot to my plan B, which, to be honest, I didn't have one. My mom could no longer work, so I had to get a job. I was still in school, didn't have my degree yet. So got in entry-level job as a sales rep. And it was, I think it was Cantel back then, way, way, way back in the day. Also had to get another part-time job to make sure, like, covering all the bills. So I was pretty much working 24/7. My mom held on for about, I would say about 5 years after that, but unfortunately passed away right after my 26th birthday. So now what? You know, the one person that you always think will always be there is now gone. Getting over that, to be honest, took, took a lot of time. And I was still working at Rogers in the stores. And at that point, trying to take business marketing courses at night, trying to finish my degree. So one of the things that you don't realize either when you go to school in the States is when you come back here, a lot of your prerequisites and your courses don't even transfer. So it was almost like starting all over again. But, an opportunity came to move to head office, which I quickly took. So getting my foot in the door at head office, I was a manager in finance. I don't know, it was just the opportunity. It was not my thing. I'm a people person, not my real cup of tea, but it got me in, got me where I needed to be. And then I moved over to sales, which, I've been there for forever. But I can tell you going into head office was a huge culture shock. And at the time, there were no women in sales and definitely no women of color. So there again, I found myself trying to fit in. And because I look younger than I am, all my male superiors were calling me honey and dear, which used to drive me insane. And then when you were to walk in a room, again, head office, huge, 24,000 employees. I'd walk into a room and usually look to see, not like I already know there wasn't going to be another woman of color, but just to see if there was another woman, because sales is a very male dominated industry. So especially back then, there weren't many. And I am a workaholic, super ambitious. So, always trying to prove myself. And then a new opportunity came along, which would mean a promotion for me. And then again, life happened. I was married probably about a year and a half prior. So I discovered I was 2 months pregnant. Couldn't commit to the travel or the long hours, but, at the time, strangely enough, you struggle with these decisions because you're young. You always think you have time to have kids and time to do other things. But in my case, kids weren't really in my plan or our plan at the time. So looking back, I can't even believe it was a struggle because my son, I have to tell you, is the absolute best thing that has ever happened to me. But while I was only planning to be off for 6 months because I wanted this promotion, and they said they would hold on to it for me, life happened again. And unfortunately, my son had a very serious condition, which ended up he needed open heart surgery. So I was actually off on mat leave for almost 2 years. So promotion long gone. When I came back, I basically had to start again because, at that point, new leadership, new direction in the sales organization. But you know what? My son was better, and that's all that mattered at the end of the day, and that's all that matters. So I had a new role, had started climbing the ladder, moving roles, getting promotions every 2 years, but still the one outlier is that still the only Black female in the Director Plus category in our wireless organization. So we talk a lot about, after the whole murder of George Floyd last year, talking about inclusion diversity is now it's the norm almost, which was really good because that back then wasn't a thing. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago wasn't a thing. It's a thing now. And people started to take notice about how people of color are treated within corporate Canada. Even though they say racism doesn't exist, it sadly does here in Canada, 100%. And if I were to compare the difference between the States and here, because pretty much been equal part done both. Their racism is just blatant. It's in your face. You know right away when someone doesn't like you. You know right away when they don't accept you as equal. Here it's a little bit more, I don't know, below the line, behind your back. You don't really know. You're not really sure. People are pretty quiet about it. But you know, it is here. And one of the things that I felt that was needed within our organization specifically was action. So, you know, myself along with a handful of other directors, we started up the Black Leadership Council in our company. And basically just the mandate was to be the voice of our Black employees and work with senior leadership to get rid of anti-Black racism within the company, but also to mentor and sponsor employees in career development and how to navigate within our organization, especially for people of color, which is not an easy thing, unfortunately. I was managing the channel marketing team, which is a fairly large team. If you think about Rogers as a whole, we've got Rogers, Fido, Chatter, so I was doing that for about 4 years. I'm currently now back in sales as the Senior Director of Retail Development. So I do a lot of B2B things on the business side. I'm responsible for the small business and corporately paid business, or sorry, corporately reimbursed business at Rogers. So it's a fairly big portfolio. I don't want to give you the wrong impression. I love my job. I've been there for 28 years. It's just there's a lot of work to do when it comes to inclusion and diversity, especially within corporate Canada. I've got a lot of peers. We, you know, being part of the council, we're also part of the Black North Initiative, which is basically holding corporate Canada accountable for, you know, ensuring that there's movement at the senior C-suite levels with people of color. So as I was saying, I love my job. I love the company. They've treated me well over the years. It's just, I think now it's just time for change. And, you know, it's, yeah, this is the time. And you ladies coming into the corporate world is something that, you know, you're going to have to deal with, not only women, but if you're a woman of color, things that you're going to have to deal with as well. And my only comment there is you don't try to conform. Like, you need to try and be your authentic self at work. And hopefully by the time that you're there, especially within my organization, because it is such a huge focus right now, that everyone can be their authentic selves when they do come to work. Again, the advice for me to you, because I lived it, is, you know, I personally thought I was going to live in Florida. I was going to be a lawyer. You know, I'd grow up, my family would grow up in the States. I think I eventually wanted to become a sports agent because I'm obsessed with sports. But obviously none of that happened because, as I said, life happened. And, you know, that's the one thing that I wish I did have was a plan B. So I'm still, unfortunately, only one of a handful of the Black senior directors at Rogers. And I do have a 16-year-old son who, like, is the world to me and is the reason I do everything that I do, and I wouldn't change a thing. Probably the only thing I would change is the 100 pounds I gained since the pandemic, but that's what the Peloton is for. But yeah, that's my story. I don't know if you guys have any questions, but I appreciate you guys having me here and having this discussion.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. That was amazing to hear your story and your vulnerability of what you went through to get to where you are today. I'm sure we all appreciate it very much. We'll now open the floor up to questions. If anyone wants to unmute themselves or drop a question in the chat, feel free to do so.
Yeah, so there's no change in LA.
Rebecca?
Hi, so I have a question. You were talking about, well, firstly, thank you for sharing your story. That was really insightful. I have a question about what you were talking about, how don't let yourself conform to the stereotypes or the stigmas in an organization and to always be your authentic self. I find even in places that I've worked, I can see myself hiding back, or I don't do this because I don't want to stand out of the crowd. And I know that's wrong because, like you said, it's important to be authentic. So, what advice do you have to, self-checking to make sure that you are being your authentic self and to not let yourself conform to the organization?
Here's what, because now I am in more of a senior role. And when I'm in a meeting and there is, a lot of people and we're talking about a certain subject, and you could see people want to say something and they want to, either they don't agree with what you're going to say, or they have a piece of information that maybe you're saying and they don't want to say. Like, find the courage to speak up, is what I would say, because I know it is scary, because I have been there myself. I've been in those rooms where, someone more senior than I am saying something that potentially is not right. And what it's not even what you say, it's probably how you say it and how you frame it. I'm going to be honest with you. I actually got a promotion and a job because I said something. I was literally a manager at the time, and it was a senior director in the room running the meeting, and unfortunately he quoted something not correct, and I just put up my hand and I said, I more framed it like, oh, you know what? I actually thought that this process was done this way, and in this manner. And he actually came up to me after, because he's a scary guy, to be honest with you. And I didn't even know this. I was brand new. This is the first time I ever saw him. And I was actually covering for my boss. That's why I was in this meeting. And the fact that I actually spoke up and said something, he actually then offered me a senior manager role on his job, in his portfolio 2 weeks later, because I spoke up in a meeting and he didn't, and the fact that no one else was saying anything. And here I am, a very, very junior person saying something in the room. So it's just the fact that he said, I appreciate your courage. I appreciate what you said, and I want you to come work for me. That's the kind of person that I need on my team. And just funny enough, this happened. I'm going to say this happened about 20 years ago, maybe 18 years ago. And this person is now the senior vice president and my boss again. So it came around. He asked me to come join him on his new team. And he, you know what, he's amazing. He treats me really well. He knows the person I am. So I would just say, just have the courage. That's my advice. Have the courage to be yourself.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because I definitely do find times where I try to mute myself, but I know it is important and I should do it more often. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. We really appreciate you coming out tonight. For those of you who still do have questions, you can have an opportunity to ask them in the networking session that's coming up after this. So moving into our fourth and our final speaker for the night.
Hi, everybody. I hope you are enjoying the event so far. Charmaine, thank you so much. Everything you said was so insightful. Thank you for sharing your story. I know our executive team and our members truly resonated with what you said. So thank you so much. So now I'm going to pass the floor to Lainey Tyler. So Lainey is a seasoned strategic growth and cultural change executive with exceptional relationship management and communication skills. Lainey's career as a business and IT leader incorporates over 25 years in the banking industry in Canada, the United Kingdom, and the USA with BMO Financial Group, and 4 years in the transportation industry with Canadian Pacific Railway. Her main areas of responsibility were development and implementation of strategic business and IT initiatives, including cultural change and business management functions of the professional IT organization and business transformation program. Right now, she is part of the C-suite with the executive team at SI Systems, and she's providing guidance, stability, leadership, and creativity in her role as Chief Operating Officer at SI Systems, where she's been for over 6 years. So I'll pass it to Lainey.
Thank you. Thanks for that lovely introduction. It's so hard to think that's me. I'm very pleased to be with you. And I only just dialed in a few minutes ago, so I got to hear the last part of Charmaine's speech, which was very inspirational. I wish I'd actually heard the whole thing. What's interesting to me is you spoke about being your authentic self. And so for me, one of the things that I'm going to be talking about tonight is actually understanding what your North Star is to you. Not so much about my career, I am going to talk about that. But I am just going to share some of the things that I've seen and what's important to me and been important to me in my career about finding that authentic part of myself. So just to touch on briefly, we are, SI Systems is Canada's largest IT staffing firm. We are a national company and we have offices across Canada, in the US, and we have our IT team is in Chennai in India. And one of the things that we focus on is connecting people to meaningful work. So, and we've done that for 8,500 Canadians. So for me, that's something I'm really proud as the company that we do is we find Canadians work. And that drives a lot of what our employees do. On the diversity front, I'm just going to talk just about the gender mix at the moment of our leadership team. And when I'm just going to look at it from a male and female perspective, but we have 13 executives in our company, 6 of whom are women and 7 men. We're a very diverse company. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is really important to us. And if you're interested in learning more about our DEI policy and our values, they are on our system on the website at sisystems.com. So I'm going to start with my story, my journey, and my self-exploration. And it's the purpose, finding my purpose and living my truth. It required resilience and courage to find myself in a corporate environment. It's not always the easiest thing to do, especially as a woman, and to stay on and commit to a path to bring joy into all aspects of my life. So today I'm going to call this Finding My North Star. So I'm going to step back and talk to you about my career. My career arch is somewhat unique. I entered the workforce with no formal post-secondary education. I had no degree. I literally learned from the ground up. I started in the basement of First Canadian Place, which is Toronto's tallest office building. My family emigrated to Canada. I grew up in the UK, and it was just after I finished high school. And I started full-time work. I entered the workforce at 16. I was excited, I was eager, I was open, and I was just ready to take on the world. My dad was a self-made entrepreneur, and he and my family have always been an inspiration for me. I've always been encouraged to follow my dreams, and I've been told that anything is possible. The only expectations I had imposed on myself were from me. As I mentioned, my first job was an entry-level position. It was with BMO Financial Group. It was then Bank of Montreal. And I embraced my job. I jumped in with both feet. And I was promoted within 3 months. And at that point, my career trajectory began. Over the years, and I hate to admit it, I've actually been in the workforce now for 40 years. Over the years, I moved into many roles and I was always eager to learn and never afraid to say no to a new opportunity. Over my career, I've worked in different industries, as my introduction just said, and I've worked in different countries. I've picked up so many skills along the way and friends. I learned from my experiences, I learned from my colleagues, and I learned from my mistakes. In this process, I began to listen to my heart. I made course adjustments along the way, and I evolved and I continue to evolve. It's a journey, it's not a destination. So what did I learn along the way? And what was it like being a woman in the business? Remembering I entered the business and the workforce in the 80s. When I look back, I see how driven I was. I wanted to grow. I always wanted to lead. And that came from my upbringing. I knew that that's where I could add the most value, although I wasn't able to articulate that at the time, but somehow I knew that that's where my value would come from. I was open to everything, always eager to learn and to meet new people. And I loved to travel. And fortunately, my jobs afforded me the ability to do that too. I focused on the positive and not what would get in the way. The thought of being a woman in business at that time actually never entered my consciousness as a barrier. It wasn't an issue in the world that I was living in, which is interesting when you consider I was in banking at the time. And at the time, that was a very male-dominated world. And as was Canadian Pacific, it was a railroad. It was run by men, and the majority of them were men. But it was interesting. I never really experienced a barrier there. I always focused on what was in front of me. I worked hard, I was diligent, and I wanted to grow. And most importantly, I wanted to help others grow, whether that was my colleagues or my managers. And my career unfolded in a way that I could not have imagined or planned. I never set my sights on any one goal, and I was always open to something new. As opportunities opened, I stepped in. I was curious about what I might learn and really who I could meet along the way. I have an innate ability to step in, eager, open, and without fear. And this has been true really throughout my life. At that time in the 80s and 90s, there weren't as many women in leadership positions. Most of my mentors were men. And I'm actually pleased to say that they were very incredibly supportive of me and helped my growth. The majority of women that were in leadership roles at that time, to me, were embodying more of their masculine qualities. You know, they'd become one of the guys, one of the boys in order to move forward. And there wasn't as much as a feminine presence or qualities. They weren't being expressed as openly. You know, I'm really glad to say that's changed drastically over my career. And I see a much more balance in that, although there's always, as Charmaine just mentioned, there's always work to be done. So as I began to climb the ladder, what did I see along the way? There was a pressure to succeed, and that became more apparent to me. There were less management jobs. The higher up I went in my career, the less positions that were available, and the competition got tougher. I was, and I actually still am, competitive by nature, not to the same degree I used to be, but I stepped up to the plate. And as you step into the game, you can lose sight of your bearings of the compass. And the energy and the pressure to succeed can take over, and you can find yourself sucked in. You can lose sight of why you stepped in the first place. And you can begin to make fear-based decisions to protect yourself and to sacrifice your truth. There is a reason they call it the rat race. I found myself being pulled into this a few times, and I experienced this with a female leader, and she was a colleague of mine, and she was faced with a restructuring, and she led that from a fear-based place. And how she approached it was removing any smart, intelligent woman that might have been a threat to her. And it was through this and through how I saw myself in this kind of cyclical pattern that I actually stepped back, and I wanted to ground and reground myself. I needed to step back. I needed to connect to my purpose, to my North Star, why I'm here. But what was that? Did I know? And I didn't know. And magically at that time, I was introduced to meditation. My meditation practice, which was very much just really a body scan. It was becoming aware of myself, of who I am. I became curious about myself. I became curious about the nature of my mind, my purpose, and what I truly wanted. And why was I here? I needed to step back and ground. I had grown through what seemed like osmosis. I was in one area and an opportunity would open up, and I had the fortune to work in all areas of the bank at the time. And so this osmosis for me had made me question, how was it that happened, and what was my North Star? And at this point, I decided I really needed to step back. I was an executive in the bank, and I took a 4-month sabbatical. I traveled to India alone, and the time was for me to reconnect with myself. I wanted to discover what mattered, and I wanted to just come closer to myself. It was my own version of Eat, Pray, Love, and it was actually just before that book came out, so it was very interesting to read that when I came back. It was a really daring thing to do when I stepped back and I look at it, because there was a voice in my head that was saying to me, well, what's going to happen if you step out of your career? How's that going to impact you? This could change everything. This could be the biggest mistake of your life. But I stepped forward and I put my plan into action. And I received, to my surprise, so much love and support from my colleagues and from the executive team at the bank. It was incredible. And of course, from my family. It was a pivotal time in my life. And as I said, I was on my own. I was in a different environment. And when I was away, I saw how much I valued the connection to life, to nature, to people, and to this continued growth and this evolution. When I came back, I questioned what it was I was doing. And this allowed me to make a change. It's when I stepped back, I'd been in this career for 25 years with one company. And I knew many people there, and I knew my way around, but I really felt like I wasn't being true to myself, that I needed to reconnect with nature, to just find something else to explore on my own. So at that point, I stepped out and I moved to a new industry in a new city to be closer to nature. I actually moved to Calgary and loved being by the mountains, spent the weekends in the mountains, and just loved my time there. As I took this step, as I stepped out of my comfort zone at BMO, I realized my own value. I realized the wealth of knowledge that I had built up over the years and what I could bring to others. Being in one place, well, for me, it was an amazing place to grow, and I wouldn't change that. I didn't realize how much I knew and how much I could help others. at this point, I felt like I spread my wings, that I shifted internally as well as externally. And as I stepped into my truth and I connected with my friends, and many of whom were my colleagues, and they shared their experience of me being in that rat race and what was my competitive nature like to them. And I was able to hear that, and to listen and to be open, and it allowed me to grow more. Since then, I've had more life experiences with new corporations and in new industries. I've had new talent challenges, and I've grown into the C-suite. Each experience has pointed me back to listen to the voice within, to find my North Star. And, you know, when I look at that and I think, you know, it's the shift that I made when I went to India, it was like my career had actually been on a lovely trajectory. But when I actually stepped back and looked at what it was I truly wanted and started listening to that voice, then it exponentially accelerated just my life, the quality of my life, my interactions, how I connected to work, how I connected to people. And when as I was going through this, I was continuing to see challenges along the way. And an example of this was when I was out in Calgary. The company was part of an aggressive hedge fund takeover. And I lived through the transition of the management change. And that change pulled the culture of the company and the people apart. And it was then again that it was time to step back, to reground, and to reconnect to my purpose, to my North Star, to why I'm here. So I took another sabbatical. And this time it was for a year. I traveled with my partner, Todd, and we went around we went back to India. We went to many other places as well, but we traveled around and experienced different cultures and put ourselves in an environment where we could see ourselves differently. I learned more about my purpose and the need for consciousness in life and in business, most importantly in business. I found my North Star. For me, it was part of who I already was. And it was because it was so much part of who I was, it was hard for me to see. I'd been looking for something, and I thought that something was outside me. I was looking for something new. It was a label and something I could point to. In truth, it was actually part of who I am. It was my makeup. It was so subtle that it was as natural as breathing, that I couldn't even see it. I overlooked it. And it was my connection to others, to life, to nature, and to the shared and continued growth and evolution of myself and the people that I came into contact with. I mentioned earlier that one of the things I saw is I knew early on that I knew I could make an effect if I was in a leadership position, but I didn't know what it was. But it's interesting because as I was preparing for this to come and talk to you, and I was thinking back about my life, it was actually, I've seen even more that it's always been there. It was there when I entered the workforce, but I just couldn't see it. So it really was amazing for me to experience this. So when I returned from my second sabbatical, I shared my insights with a friend, and that friend is Derek Bullen, and he's the CEO at SI Systems. I shared that story with him 6 years ago, and at that point, I joined the company. There was a lovely alignment of our values. SI Systems values are transparent, professional, accountable, and possible. And for me, I'm the COO here, and leadership isn't always easy. There are times when you need to hold the line, where you need to face challenges, and it's important to stay true to yourself, to lead with clarity, compassion, and love. I love my team and I love our company. And I love living with the thought of what's possible. So the fact that that's one of our company values is just amazing for me. When I think of how we can help each other, it's important for us to be here for each other, to help each other. When we step up, turn around and help the person behind you. I will admit, in my early career, when I was being sucked into that, I was just moving forward and I wasn't taking the time to do that. I learned that along the way. And I think it's also important for each of us to balance the masculine and feminine energies that are innate to each of us, to balance those and to be able to bring the softness and also what's required to survive in business, but to have those balanced. So that's really my story, but I'm going to ask you something now. What's your North Star? What is it that you do, that you love to do, that's such a part of who you are that you don't even notice it, that for you it's as natural as breathing? What's your truth? Why are you doing what you're doing? I would encourage you to get curious, to listen, and then to listen again. And with that, I will see. I'm not sure how I'm doing for time. If I thank you.
Thank you so much, Lainey, for sharing your story. We really appreciate it. And to all of our members who are here tonight, if you have any specific questions for Lainey, you can ask them during our networking portion of the evening. I'm now going to pass it to our president, Marisa, to go over what networking will look like.
All right, so just on the bottom part of your screen there, I believe you should have an option to join a room. Did everyone see that pop up there? Okay, awesome. So there is a room for each of our speakers tonight, which our speakers can join, and then you can have the opportunity to just hop in and out of whatever room you would like. So if everyone sees that bottom portion, you just have to go to the name and click join onto it.
Do we come back here after, or?
Yeah, you can join back in here after if you'd like. We're just going to wrap it up when we get back. So whatever you have time for.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Might just be me, Marisa, but I don't have access to the breakout rooms right now.
Okay. Let's see. Does everyone else have access, or are you guys having the same issues as well?
No, I have access.
It's just
Okay.
me, guys.
Kaylee, do you have a room you want to go to?
Wherever you want to put me, wherever I can fill a gap, maybe.
Can the rest of you, do the rest of you can see the bottom of your screen there? Okay, so you guys are more than, you guys are more than welcome to join whichever room you choose.
There we go. Thank you.
With you.
You too.